Hi, welcome to Module 3, Lesson 1. This lesson is all about nutrition, and this is about nutrition in our daily lives. Let's get started. In Modules 1 and 2, we talked about the gut microbiome, what it takes to test for our gut health issues, how to evaluate what may be going on through different testing and different types of treatments that there may be available, how our lifestyle affects our gut health, including sleep and movement, as well as our environmental influences, such as all the kinds of foods that we have available to us. And this module is all about talking about putting it all together. So if you want to heal your gut, lose weight and feel better, we're going to talk about all those things in module 3. So to kick off this lesson, when we're talking about food, I love this quote from Janine Roth, who has been talking for a long time about the way we eat, how it reflects our lives. And so she said, we eat the way we live. What we do with our food, we do in our lives. Eating is a stage upon which we act out our beliefs in ourselves. And this is a very, very thoughtful statement. It has to do with a lot of things about our own history, our culture, what we think about ourselves, what we think about ourselves in relationship to the world, and how carefully we treat ourselves throughout our lives. Um, I think this is a very important statement. And if you want to, keep coming back to this statement and reflect upon it, I think it's a great idea to do that. When we talk about weight loss, which a lot of people are interested in, since we have such an epidemic of obesity in our country and throughout the world, one of the things that we all need to understand is that a healthy gut is essential for weight loss to occur. Weight loss will not happen unless our gut is healthy. And if we are constantly in a state of low-grade systemic inflammation because of multiple factors, such as the standard American diet or pro-inflammatory conditions, and obesity itself, we are not only at a risk for not having weight loss, but we're at an increased risk for autoimmune disease, insulin resistance, and long-term dementia. One of the things you need to evaluate in your gut if you want to lose weight and maybe you're stalled for some reason, you might want to go down the road of investigating, if your gut health, right? And if you have leaky gut, be aware that this can be a significant cause of systemic inflammation, which in turn increases cortisol, because cortisol, remember, is the stress hormone. So if you are inflamed because of leaky gut, because all those little particles are leaking out into your system, your adrenals are going to also start secreting cortisol, which will further perpetuate that inflammation. And knowing that, gluten, for example, is something that, remember, through molecular mimicry, can cause autoimmune reactions and cross-reactivity with healthy tissue. So, for example, gluten can be very molecularly similar to thyroid tissue. And if your immune system starts looking at your own thyroid as non-self and attacks it, you're going to slow down your metabolic functions because you have an autoimmune reaction taking place. Obesity itself is an inflammatory condition, especially when you talk about abdominal body fat. And fat cells themselves, or adipocytes, trigger chemical messages that are called cytokines and hormones that induce and perpetuate inflammation. Fat cells also enhance production, have enhanced estrogen production. Uh, and this increases the risk of breast cancer and other estrogen related cancers, such as those of the uterus, ovaries, cervix, GYN tract in general. And something else is noted that fat cells are also um, secretors of high levels of leptin. And remember, leptin is the satiety hormone. And obese individuals are sometimes have leptin resistance, right? Um, so in the case where, there may be more leptin circulating, however, the body is not paying attention to it. So you just keep eating because you don't feel satisfied and you're not full, right? Um, and that also makes it very difficult to lose weight. So first, if you want to heal your gut, the first thing you have to do is test your microbiome. See what's going on. I would say test, don't guess. You want to find out what's going on in your microbiome. Is there dysbiosis? Is there SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth? Are there infections such as H. pylori? Is there leaky gut? All of these things can impact your weight loss journey. You also want to check for food sensitivities. Many people have sensitivities to gluten, to dairy, to nightshades. And nightshades, again, are peppers, eggplants, potatoes, tomatoes, um, foods of this nature that can cause reactions. And many people are sensitive to nightshades. Also nuts. Um, People have many allergies to nuts, especially, not only peanuts, but tree nuts, and you just don't know it. There's over 275 foods that can be tested for, which can cause reactivity and inflammation. So, and the testing that can take place, you can do it either blood spot, saliva, or just straight serum. So these tests are easily obtainable from any functional medicine practitioner. So once you know what's going on, you may want to consider nutraceutical support. Um, these are uh, these are supplements that are available in most cases without prescription. Um, the the best thing you could do, the best alternative to diet would be nutraceuticals. But you first want to try incorporating more of these probiotic and prebiotic foods into your diet. And the list I've given you here is by no means exhaustive. If you do go for a probiotic to supplement your diet as a nutraceutical, you want to make sure you have at least 10 billion colony forming units. You need to have a high number of probiotic organisms present in the supplement that you're taking, because the probiotics are mostly active in the lower GI tract, but to get there, the probiotic has to pass through the upper GI tract. So it goes through a lot of like digestive processes. And so not a lot of these bacteria make it down to the lower GI tract. So you need to have like maybe too many of them. You need to have a lot of them when you take them, so that you can be ensured that most, or some of them at least, would end up in the lower GI tract where they actually do their work. Prebiotics, as you know, are what feeds the probiotics. So this comes mostly in the form of fiber. You can see these all these prebiotic foods in the list to the right that have prebiotic capabilities. Other types of nutraceuticals you can take are digestive enzymes. You can also take GI repair. supplements that can help with mucosal support and reparation of the bowel wall for leaky gut. These usually contain marshmallow or cat claw, and these help heal the mucosal membranes. And then if you have some kind of infection like H. pylori, for example, you may want to obtain antimicrobial herbal support in the form of the substances of berberine or oil of oregano, for example, which are very good for their antimicrobial capabilities. You should be eating a variety of foods. Um, there are a lot of people eat the same thing every day in and day out. And that is a practice that, while sometimes it really does help for, consistency. We are creatures of habit. We love to, have a diet that's reliable. Trying to think of different things to eat every day is not that easy, but it's always good to try and get out of your little rut and eat new foods in your diet. It's not that easy to do, but try and eat new foods in terms of new vegetables, making different types of salads, incorporating fermented foods into your diet. I wouldn't worry so much about fat. You don't really see people like eating a whole stick of butter or a whole, spoonfuls of fats. Although sometimes people do take coconut oil by the spoonful. But I wouldn't worry so much about fat. The culprits that you really need to worry about more often are sugar and gluten, um, and highly processed foods and refined sugars. So breakfast cereals are notoriously um, uh, for this. They're notoriously sugar full and big balls of carbohydrate and processed substances that nobody really needs to be eating. Any kinds of packaged foods, fast food or frozen meals. Be careful about incorporating those into your diet or keeping them in your diet if you have them already. Try and really limit that, especially packaged foods and fast food. Limit that to only rare occasions. You might want to consider going on, an anti-inflammatory diet, meaning limiting inflammatory foods. As I mentioned already, gluten, refined sugar, processed foods, grains, dairy, processed vegetable oils, nightshades, as I listed. These are all potentially inflammatory foods for some people. So eliminating those or decreasing those from your routine diet may be helpful to make you feel better. High quality proteins in the form of fish, lean meats such as chicken or turkey, healthy fats, olive oil, artichoke oil, um, limiting, things like vegetable oil or hydrogenated oils are all better for you to decrease. Obviously vegetables, we can list hundreds of them. Those are always good. Can't have too many of those. Fermented foods, such as kimchi or kombucha, which I would be careful about kombucha because you can look at sometimes a lot of them have high sugar content if you buy it over the counter. If you're particularly energetic, you can find a way to learn how to make them. You can find all over the internet, there are recipes for fermenting and making your own kombucha. Uh, I have not done it myself, but I think it would be kind of fun and interesting to do that. And that way you can actually control the process and how much flavor or sugar you add to it. I think it would be particularly helpful. So, anything you make in your kitchen on your own will automatically be better than anything you can buy from a package. Um, Taking a high quality probiotic, I've already covered this in the last couple of slides. Make sure you have like over the number of colony forming units, over 10 billion is good, because remember it has to get down to that lower GI tract. And also, part of the anti-inflammatory protocol would be to manage your stress, uh, get better sleep quality, meditations, and doing some sort of movement, which is very important for uh, not only mindset but also for your gut to help things move through your digestive tract better and without as much difficulty. And I cover more about these topics in lesson 3 of this module. Another word of advice I would have for you is be aware of what you eat. Um, Accountability is something that is so important to our eating protocols. Uh, Whether you write down everything you eat with a pen and paper, or you log it on using an app such as MyFitnessPal, which I think is a very good app. But a lot of the weight loss, quote unquote, weight loss companies like WW or Noom or um, Nutrisystem even have ways to record your food, which I think keeps you accountable. But you know what? Even if you use just a notebook and a pen, it still works to keep you accountable, because if you have to write it down, you commit to it and you actually see what you're eating. And I actually saw a documentary several years ago about people who had lost weight and kept it off for a long period of time. And the people who did the best at keeping their weight off were the ones that continued to weigh themselves and log their food. So logging your food is a very important part of your accountability and your awareness of what you eat. The other thing is to really eat without distraction, which so many of us sit in front of the television, in front of our phones. We eat in the car. We eat, everywhere except at a table. We eat standing up, walking around the kitchen. We eat over the sink. These are all kinds of ways that are, this is all distracted eating. I know, a long time ago, before I had lost a significant amount of weight, it was my habit to eat in the car a lot. And I, went through drive-throughs. I always had some kind of, candy or soda or something in the car that I was drinking or eating. And, for one thing, the food that you would eat in the car, it's really hard to eat a salad in the car. So it's going to be food that really is not on your protocol. It's not something that's going to be a healthy choice. So that right there should tell you something. Um, so it's going to be packaged, it's going to be processed, it's going to be sugary, it's going to be caffeinated. So all of these things are, are enough of an issue to begin with. And then on top of that, you have distracted eating, so that you do not know how much you're eating of that. And that can be a significant problem, and that will derail any weight loss effort that you have. So I've already talked a lot about logging your food. Like I said, that you either use an app or you can use just a plain notebook, and you can just make a food journal just on your own. It's very easy. It doesn't matter what you use, just as long as you do it. You can log daily, which is optimal, or at least often. And here you can talk about, the 80-20 rule. So if you log 80% of the time, that's good enough. Um, when you log food, one thing I do recommend is that you log before you eat. So don't sit there at night and say, okay, this is what I ate all day today. You're not going to remember. Um, and one of the things that I actually do is that I log backwards, meaning that I start at dinner and then I go down to lunch and I go down to breakfast, and I look at what I'm going to eat. I plan it out, that morning. And then if I'm trying to balance my macros, which I'll get to in a little bit, or I'm trying to, look at what my balance of food is, in terms of carbs or protein or whatever, I can do that, if I go backwards, you know. So like if I know that I'm going out that night, I will, go lighter on my breakfast and my lunch. So these are things that if you have the advance notice, you're able to really take very good control of what you eat and when you eat it. And the other thing is, and a lot of people talk about, when they talk about intuitive eating, um, it's also about learning to identify hunger in your body. So many of us eat when we're not hungry, and we don't know when our bodies are actually hungry. Um, they just, you just might eat just because you think it's time. Oh, it's noon, I have to eat lunch. Or it's 8 o'clock, I must have to eat breakfast. Or it's 6 o'clock, I must be eating dinner. Or it's been 2 hours since I ate, so I need to eat again, whether or not you're hungry. And this is a very detrimental practice. Eating when you're hungry and learning to identify hunger in your body is very important. It allows your body to send its signals to your brain. It allows the gut to say, I'm hungry, and the brain to register that. And by eating when you're not hungry, you're stifling that. And that is not, that leads to uh, emotional eating, it leads to buffering, it leads to all different kinds of eating when you're not hungry, and you will eat things that you should not be eating. Now, another thing, if you're not hungry, you could be angry, you could be lonely, you could be tired. These are all signals of emotional eating. So these are some things that you should ask yourself when you go to eat. You say, am I hungry? Am I really hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? And what are you hungry for? Sometimes it's not something savory. Sometimes it's something sweet. Sometimes it's something savory. It doesn't matter. But what is your body telling you that you want to eat? And I think these are important messages to consider when you're thinking about what you want to eat, when you want to eat it, and how you want to eat. A lot of people talk about intermittent fasting. It goes in and out of vogue every few years or so. Um, Benefits of intermittent fasting. There's a lot of benefits. One is that it reduces. You do have reduced calorie intake by only eating, like some people only eat 2 meals a day. They skip breakfast. Some people only eat 1 meal a day. So you may by purposely you're eating less at less times. You're eating less calories. Um, you're also eating. To lower your hormones. So this will also lower your insulin and increase growth hormone levels, and it will increase the release of fat burning hormone norepinephrine or noradrenaline. So uh, that in turn, that may increase your metabolic rate. And some people say it increases the metabolic rate by 3 to 14%. So it changes really both sides of the equation. So it changes the calories in, and it changes the calorie needs. So therefore you burn it at both ends. And this also may help reduce belly fat. This is the kind of fat that is very harmful, and is a great cardiovascular risk. Um, and also some studies show that it leads to less muscle loss. Uh, and however, you have to remember, if you binge during the time you're supposed to eat and you eat massive amounts, you may not lose any weight at all. So you really don't get the benefits that I've just mentioned. Some of the other benefits of intermittent fasting include increasing the body's resistance to oxidative stress, helping reduce inflammation, um, which is a very interesting thing because, you know, if, uh, if you think that, the gut, leaky gut can be inflammatory. The less times you feed it, the less food that goes in there, the less inflammation you may have. Um, there's also cardiac benefits they've seen with lowering triglycerides and LDLs, lowering blood pressure. Um, and there have been animal studies that show that it increases longevity. There's it's been said that there's a five-fold increase of human growth hormone, which will increase muscle gain, and has benefits for also for fat loss. There's an increase of insulin sensitivity, and that makes stored body fat more accessible. So there's changes with insulin. There's also an increase in the cellular repair process. Uh, so basically your cells will go and do something called autophagy, which the cells will basically eat other cells instead of all the other food that's around. So the cells digest and remove old and dysfunctional proteins that build up. Um, and in terms of gene expression, there are changes in the function of genes related to longevity and protection against disease associated with intermittent fasting. And if you're wondering how you can do it, there's three different kinds of ways that people recommend that you do intermittent fasting, these different protocols. There's the 16-8, which is very common, is that you don't eat for, eat for 8 hours and then you fast for 16. So it basically can mean that you basically skip breakfast and you eat in a 8-hour window. There's also eat, stop, eat, which involves fasting for 24 hours, once or twice a week, and then not eating for another 24 hours after that. There's the 5-2 diet, which means you consume only 500 to 600 calories on 2 non-consecutive days of the week, but you eat normally on the other 5 days. So all of these, you should, if you're interested in doing this, you can try them out and see if any of them work for you. But, it would be good if you tried these methods out, you tried them out for, 2 weeks at a minimum to notice any kind of effect. You can't just do it for like 2 days and say, oh, well, it didn't work, and then go back to something else. You need to give it an actual effort, and probably about 2 weeks is good enough. So here's just these protocols that you can see, and if you look at the handouts, these are all in handout, and you can actually see what these look like in terms of days of the week. Now on to macronutrients. So this is another way of looking at food, the food that we eat. This method really divides your food groups up into carbs, protein, and fat, and you eat a certain percentage of each of these groups every day. And basically you balance out what these percentages are. So one thing you have to do is calculate your macros based on your basal metabolic rate. There's a calculation called the Harris-Benedict equation, which takes into account your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, your activity level, and this calculates your daily amount of calories. Right? And so from these calories, then what you do is you figure out what your macro split is going to be. So if you want to eat like 1,500 calories and you want to eat 40% carb, 40% protein, and 20% fat, then it by doing this calculation, you can figure out how many grams of each of those macronutrients that you can eat, and you balance them daily based on what grams of each one that you're given. And this actually works out for a lot of people. it's very good for, for if you want to adjust, the amount of protein or the amount of carbs, the amount of fat that you want to ingest in your diet. You can figure out what feels best for you, what your body likes to operate on. And I think it can be a very livable, workable way. But the one thing that you have to do with this is that you have to be able to log your food, and you have to be dedicated to calculating these the food every day. So you can't just do this like intuitively. This is not an intuitive method at all. Unlike the intermittent fasting, um, or just plain intuitive eating. This is really something that takes dedication. So now we talk about glucose, which, there are definitely thoughts of people who study this that, glucose or sugar is really the most important thing to control. And there is some merit to that. I think that sugar is a very inflammatory substance. It can be a source of disease processes like diabetes. And I think it's something that we need to pay attention to. So a lot of people talk about glucose spikes, which is really the buildup of glucose in the bloodstream that is in excess of what can be controlled by insulin. So remember, insulin is the hormone secreted by the pancreas, which is responsible for transporting glucose from the blood to the liver and then also to fat, right? So insulin is really the hormone that makes you fat. This is true in diabetics and in non-diabetics. We all have insulin. And glucose spikes happen whether you are diabetic or not diabetic. Glucose itself, your blood glucose can be measured by a continuous glucose monitor, a CGM, and a lot of people actually do that, not just diabetics. So you can tell like what your blood glucose is after you eat. You can see actually the glucose spike. What you cannot see are fructose spikes, which also occur with the glucose spikes, but they cannot be measured. And therefore, they are in a way more dangerous because you can't measure them, so you don't know what the effect is. They kind of occur quietly in the background, and they can cause a lot of damage. And with substances like high fructose corn syrup, you can really ingest a lot of fructose and have fructose spikes that you don't even know about. So there are some people, including a person who wrote a book called The Glucose Revolution, a woman named Jessie Inchauspé, who talked about glucose hacks. And I think this is very interesting. I think is worth mentioning. It talks about the order in which you eat, which a lot of people think is a good idea, or you could think it's hooey. I mean, whatever you want to think, I'm just going to present it to you, and you can draw your own conclusions. But eating food in the right order, meaning you eat your protein first, your fat, and then your carb. Add the green starter to your meal, so basically have a salad. And so before I go on to more of them, I want to tell you that the reasoning behind this is to control the glucose spike. So when you ingest glucose or any kind of thing that, a carbohydrate, for example, that needs to be broken down, they're broken down very fast, right? And proteins and fats are broken down more slowly. So the idea is if you think of your stomach like a sink, right? And then the tube that goes down into your intestines as the drain, you want to control how fast that carbohydrate goes down into the drain. So you want to push the protein first, the fat, and then the carb, so that the carb will be broken down more slowly because the protein and the fat are broken down first. And that is also the idea behind adding a green starter to your meals. You have a salad, and that salad is broken down more slowly because you got to break down the fiber and you got to break down those vegetables. And that takes a lot longer than breaking down, like, say, a piece of bread, right? She also recommends stop counting calories. In fact, a lot of people do. Um, there's a whole idea that, calories are just measures of heat and they don't really mean very much. There could be some truth to that, but these are, there's arguments for and against, right? Have a savory breakfast instead of a sweet breakfast. I actually do this myself. I think this is actually something that's worthwhile, because what the idea is if you start your day off with sugar, you just spend the rest of the day chasing that sugar. So eating, if you eat like a Danish or you eat something that's, sugary breakfast cereal, you will be having glucose spikes all day long. So whereas if you eat, say, avocado toast, you have that fat there. You're quelling that glucose spike. And also, the final thing of this page is that sugar is sugar. So what she means is that, whether it's agave or honey or sugar or, cane sugar or beet sugar, it doesn't matter. Your body sees it all as sugar. And that's true, actually. Um, so the other things that she recommends are pick dessert over a sweet snack, meaning that if you're going to have something sweet, make sure it's part of your meal. It's at the end of your meal as dessert rather than an isolated snack such as a cookie at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Um, she also advocates apple cider vinegar before you eat. This is a controversial idea. But a lot of people do it. You just have to really make sure how much apple cider vinegar you have. Don't drink more than a tablespoon dissolved in water. The other ones, really eat after you move. I think this is also very good advice. Taking a walk after you eat. I know it's very common, like in a lot of European countries, like France or Italy, to take a walk after dinner or a walk after a big lunch, and that's a really, really nice habit to be in. It helps your digestion. It gets your body moving, and it's a really nice thing to do. And your body thanks you for it. And then if you have a snack, go savory instead of sweet. A lot of talking about sugar again. Also good advice. And then put clothes on your carbs, which is a kind of a cute way of saying that don't have carbs just by themselves. Make sure you have a little fat or a little protein with them. So if you have a piece of bread, don't have just have a piece of bread by itself. You can put some peanut butter on it. So that way you're not just eating solid sugar by itself. You have something to slow down that glucose spike. So with these recommendations, it's all about controlling the glucose spike. So now we'll move on to just one thing I'm going to talk about more in lesson 3, but identifying your triggers for potentially overeating. A lot of people, myself included, sometimes go through times when, you feel bad, you have a bad day, and you make yourself feel better with food. This is a common practice. And with those activities all come triggers. It's important that you identify your triggers before you engage in the behavior. And this really takes some doing, um, looking at what those triggers might be, identifying patterns in your life. You don't have to tell anybody about it. You just have to look at it and maybe write them down in your own journal, or finding ways to cope with any kind of emotional or behavioral upset that does not have to do with food. And this is usually, something that's very difficult. It's a difficult problem to resolve, but it is not impossible. So I'll talk more about this and how to avoid some of these things, and identify your triggers in lesson 3. So the next thing I want to talk about in this lesson is meal planning. This is something that I believe in very strongly. I think that it's extremely helpful in my toolbox, especially since I work outside of the home, and I have a family that I take care of, and I only want to be going food shopping once a week, and I don't have time to be running to the store all the time for different ingredients. So if I've planned out my meals, I know that I have all the ingredients on hand for everything that I want to make. Um, I also am able to consider everybody's food preferences, including my own, and everybody's different schedules and all those kinds of things when you have a busy family, or if you have kids who go to practices or lessons, or a spouse that comes home later in the evening. You can have all of these variables under control, and you can also allow yourself to include easy dishes to make during the week. You can incorporate all your uh, fun appliances like the Instant Pot. You can make dinner salads. You can get an appropriate balance of vegetables and protein in every meal. And I think it's just a very mindful way of eating, and incorporates intention into your daily life. And it also eliminates stress, because a lot of times, we come home after a busy day, and you come through the door and you're like, well, they're going to look at you and say, well, what's for dinner? And that is a very stressful thing. So if you have it all planned out, you can just look at your list and say, we're going to have this for dinner, or we're going to have that for dinner. And you have many choices of different meals, and you know that you have the ingredients in the fridge, and you're able to put it together. It's a really, really good tool to have in your toolbox. So how do I do it? So I put videos together that have been on my socials, and they've done really well. And so basically, this is how I do it. I take 2 pieces of paper. I have all these little notepads that I use, and I've been doing this for many years, and I find it works very well. One piece of paper, I list the days of the week, and the other piece of paper is my shopping list. And what I do is I list next to all those days, I list the meals that I want to make, and I do this really for dinner. Um, because usually, my kids eat lunch in school. They don't bring lunch from home, um, and breakfast is a variable for us. So, but you can do this for breakfast too. Sometimes people just make like one thing for breakfast. And you can, and that's that. But for dinner is usually the most variable meal for everybody. So I just do this list for variables, and for the variable meal, which is dinner. And then I make my list, and that's the list that I go shopping with. And I think that that's really found I found this to be a very helpful thing, even when I was single and I had no kids. I did this, and I found it worked very well. Um, and then, make sure you set aside some time over your weekend to prep at least some of your meals during the week. Like if I am making a dish that has a sauce or something like that, like I'll try and make the sauce. Or I'll grill chicken for lunches during the week that can go over a salad. I love hard-boiled eggs. Not everybody eats eggs, but I think eggs are, fantastic food. They have lots and lots of nutrition. So I may hard boil some eggs. You can also chop vegetables and put them in Ziploc bags for later use, like red pepper or whatever you want to use in your salads, or carrots or whatever. And meal prep also allows you to have all your ingredients on hand, and when you're doing it, then that everything is there. And I think this is a good time saver, and also makes you putting together meals during the week a lot easier and less stressful. So when you feed a family, every family is different, and whether it's just you and another adult, or it's you by yourself, or it's you with a bunch of kids in your house, uh, try and have everybody eat the same thing. I know that realistically, sometimes that doesn't happen. There's, I have a picky eater in my family. One of my sons, we have a hard time, but you know what? I serve the same thing to everybody, and I think it's fair. Um, More or less, we all eat the same thing. Um, you know, don't exclude yourself from the mix of food. Try and eat the food that you prepare. This might sound a little strange, but there's sometimes when if you are trying to lose weight and you think that it's better to eat something or eat nothing while everybody else is eating, that's not helpful for your mind. Um, and also, it's good to remember that, being a role model is really important. If you have children, they notice everything. I don't need to tell you that, you know. Um, Children notice everything, and if they see that, you're always on a diet, or, this this presents a certain kind of picture to kids. Um, Encourage your kids to try different foods, especially vegetables. You can also try and sneak vegetables into foods. There are cookbooks that are just for that. Um, I also find that my 12-year-old, for example, will eat cabbage if I stick it in a dish that I make that has like a ground pork and cabbage and mushrooms, and I stir fry all of that together, and the cabbage just kind of melts, and he eats that no problem. It just, it's all in the way you present it. So try and have fun with it. Try and choose different things. Make a variety of food in your home, what you serve to people, and what you feed yourself. You know, your body will be very happy to receive that, and I think it helps with your family life as well. So if you want some resources, here are some of the resources that I use. There's macro trackers if you're interested in counting your macros and keeping that kind of protocol. I know MyFitnessPal, which is one I use that tracks macros, is very helpful. Um, there are some plans themselves that use macros. Um, there's Lumen, which measures your CO2. There's a device that does that. And then offers macros, and that changes on a daily basis, which is kind of interesting. You can try that. There are websites that I go to myself and I use. I really like America's Test Kitchen. They have a lot of really good recipes. They they're easy. You can go from easy to difficult. And everything in between. I've never made a bad recipe from there. I've always had very, very good recipes from that site. Simply Recipes is also another site that I frequent often, as well as a site called Once Upon a Chef. I've been using her site for years, and she has great kid-friendly food. She also has great baked goods if you're interested in that. And she has good food meals that will feed a crowd. Um, I also use Skinny Taste. Her air fryer book is very good. I have an air fryer, which I use for all different kinds of things. Um, it can make, you can make great chicken wings for kids on that. You make great hot wings. You can make I use the rotisserie feature, and I make a rotisserie chicken. It's really good. It's better than what I get in the supermarket. You can do air fried broccoli as well, which I have a recipe for, which is sounds weird, but it's really very good. I also use the Instant Pot a lot. Uh, that gets a big workout in my house. And nonstick pans instead of using pans where I have to use oil. My nonstick pans are my workhorse in my house as well. A couple of books that I can recommend about eating and all things related. Janine Roth wrote a wonderful book. It's kind of it's it's several years old now, but I think it still comes to comes to light as being true, called Women, Food, and God, An Unexpected Path to Almost Everything. It's about our relationship with food and how we live our lives. I think it's fascinating. Jessie Inchauspé, who wrote the Glucose Revolution, she also has an Instagram that's very active, and I think that's worth looking up if you're interested at all in glucose spikes and her recommendations to how to control glucose in our lives. If you're ever interested in working with me, I do gut health and coaching as well. I uh, do gut health assessment through uh, history and ordering of tests, and then I do interpretation of the results with recommendations based on individuals' history and what test results are. I also do coaching for weight management and stress reduction. And you can reach me through my website, which is intentionalselfct.com. My Facebook is Intentional Self, and my Instagram is Dr. Terry Alacio. So I will see you in the next lesson, and I hope you learned something. Thanks very much.